Snow whispered against the windshield as I drove the last few miles toward home. The highway was almost deserted, just lonely headlights cutting through a blur of white. I hadn't been home for Christmas in 2 years, not since I moved to the city to take that awful job at the clinic, and started sending money every month to help my parents get back on their feet. I thought this year would be different. I'd saved enough to bring gifts for everyone. I'd even managed to pay off my student loan, and that extra $8,500 I'd lent Dad last spring, he promised he'd pay me back before Christmas. But when I turned into our street, something inside me sank. The house looked dead, no lights in the windows, no inflatable Santa on the lawn. The driveway was empty except for Grandma's old Buick. I tried to shake off the unease, telling myself maybe they were out shopping or visiting friends. Still, as I stepped out of the car and felt the biting cold, a strange hollowness settled in my chest. I pushed the front door open. "Hello?" I called softly. "Mom, Dad, Emma?" Nothing, just silence. Then I heard a faint clink metal against ceramic coming from the kitchen. I followed the sound, and there she was, Grandma, sitting alone at the old oak table, wearing her faded cardigan, eating cold mashed potatoes out of a chipped bowl. "Grandma," my voice cracked. "What's going on? Where is everyone?" She didn't look up right away. Her hand trembled as she lifted another spoonful, her silver hair catching the dim light above her. When she finally met my eyes, there was something tired and resigned in her gaze. "They're gone, sweetheart," she said quietly. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" She gestured toward the counter. A single piece of paper lay there folded neatly, as if it had been waiting for me. I reached for it. My hands were shaking before I even opened it. The handwriting was unmistakable Mom's, curly letters, a little rushed. "Spent your $8,500 loan on a family cruise. Take care of Grandma. Merry Christmas." For a moment, I just stood there. The words didn't make sense. I read them again and again, but they stayed the same. They'd taken my money, the money I'd worked myself sick for, and left me here, alone with Grandma. A cold laugh escaped my throat. "Unbelievable," I whispered. They didn't even. Grandma reached over and placed her hand on mine. Her skin was warm and fragile, like parchment. "They didn't ask," she said softly. "They said you wouldn't mind, that you were too busy with your city life to come home." I pulled away, pacing the kitchen. "Too busy. I was working 3 jobs, Grandma. They knew that." "I know, darling, I know." I sank into the chair opposite her, my eyes burning. The old clock on the wall ticked steadily, each second slicing through the silence. I could almost hear the faint echo of their laughter, my mother, father, sister, all of them sipping cocktails somewhere in the Caribbean, spending my money. Take care of Grandma. That line stabbed me harder than anything else. Like I was their babysitter, like I didn't exist beyond my wallet. Grandma sighed and pushed her bowl aside. "You know," she murmured, "this isn't the first time they've done something like this." I looked up. "What do you mean?" "They've always taken from you. Your birthday savings, your college fund, even that old car you bought. Your father sold it and told you it was stolen. You remember." I clenched my fists. I remembered all of it. Every little betrayal I'd forced myself to forgive because they're family. But something inside me snapped tonight. I stared at that stupid note again, the way "Merry Christmas" was underlined, as if they'd done me a favor. My tears dried on my cheeks. The air in the room felt heavier. Grandma must have sensed the change in me, because when I looked at her again, she wasn't sad anymore. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, tired but knowing. "We'll fix this," she said quietly. Her words hung in the air, strange and comforting at the same time. "Fix this." I repeated, half laughing. "How, Grandma? They're halfway across the ocean by now." Her smile didn't fade. "Let them have their fun," she said. "Sometimes people don't realize how cold the world can get until the warmth they took for granted disappears." Something about the way she said it sent a shiver down my spine. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on my old bed, staring at the ceiling, surrounded by boxes of decorations that never got put up. The walls felt closer somehow. I could almost hear the echoes of past Christmases, laughter, music, wrapping paper tearing, and all I felt now was a void. I thought about calling them, telling them how cruel this was. But then I remembered the last time I'd called Mom's voice, irritated, telling me not to guilt-trip them for living their lives. No. Let them have their cruise, let them have their fun. Because when they came back, they'd find out exactly what her retaliation means. The next morning, Grandma was already awake when I came downstairs. She had that mischievous look, the same one she used to have when we baked cookies and hid extra chocolate chips for Mom. "I've been thinking," she said, "about your parents, about that cruise." I poured myself some coffee, trying to keep my voice steady. "Thinking what?" "About how ungrateful they are, how much they've used you, and how sometimes Lessons need to be taught, Grandma, I said cautiously. You're scaring me a little. She chuckled. Good, you should be. Then she slid a small, faded notebook across the table. You remember your grandfather's business? I nodded. He had that repair shop, right, closed down years ago. Well, he did more than fix cars, she said. He fixed problems for people who couldn't fix them themselves. I frowned. What are you talking about? Let's just say your grandfather had connections, friends who knew how to make things right. I stared at her, unsure whether she was joking or losing her mind, but the glint in her eye told me she was dead serious. Grandma, you're not saying I'm saying, she interrupted softly, that payback doesn't have to be violent. It just has to be unforgettable. For a long time we sat in silence. Outside, snow kept falling, blanketing the world in white, peaceful, deceptive, pure. By evening we had a plan, nothing dangerous, nothing illegal, just poetic justice. Step 1. Access. Grandma still had the passwords, my mother's email, Dad's credit accounts, even my sister's influencer profile she loved showing off. Step 2. Timing. 4 days. That's how long their cruise would last before docking. 4 days to make them feel what I'd felt. Step 3. Exposure. The world would see them not as the loving family they pretended to be online, but as the selfish parasites they really were. As I stared at the flickering lights on the empty porch that night, I whispered to myself, Merry Christmas, Mom. Let's see how warm that sunshine feels when your masks melt off. Grandma smiled beside me. Atta girl, she said. Just remember revenge isn't evil when it's justice wearing a better dress. We both laughed quietly, the sound sharp and strange in the still air. And somewhere deep in the hollow ache of my chest, something began to thaw. Not because I forgave them, but because I finally stopped letting them win. They took my money, they took my peace, now I'd take their comfort. The storm outside grew stronger, rattling the windows. It felt right, 4 days, that's all it would take. And by the time they came back, they'd be begging for forgiveness. But I'd already be gone. The snow had stopped falling by the morning of the 4th day. The world outside looked clean again, white, silent, perfect, like a lie carefully wrapped in beauty. I stood by the window, holding a cup of coffee, watching the mailman trudge through the snow, and thinking how peace can feel so loud when you're waiting for a storm to return. Grandma was in the living room, knitting something red and humming softly. It had been 4 long days since we started our quiet little operation, and now it was time for the final step. The cruise ship had docked early that morning. By tonight, they'd be home. I turned to Grandma. They're probably boarding their flight now. She didn't look up. Good, she said. Everything's ready. The laptop on the kitchen counter was still open pages filled with carefully timed posts, messages, and scheduled uploads. Their online lives, which they valued more than real ones, were about to collapse in front of thousands of eyes. The night they left, Grandma and I had spent hours sorting through their files, emails, and social accounts. Every little lie, every debt hidden under my name, every fake charity post where they used my donations for themselves, we'd collected everything. And tonight the world would know, but that wasn't all. While they were busy drinking cocktails in the Caribbean, Grandma had made a few quiet calls to certain people who still owed her favors from decades ago. One of them worked at the same travel agency that booked their cruise. Another managed a local paper, and one worked in finance. By the time they set foot back in this town, their accounts would be flagged for investigation, unauthorized transactions, fraud alerts, pending holds. Nothing illegal from our side, just exposure. Grandma had smiled when I first doubted the plan. Sweetheart, she said, you don't break people like them with fists. You break them with truth, the one thing they've spent their lives running from. It was nearly midnight when headlights flashed through the window. They were back. I felt my stomach tighten. My hands trembled, not from fear but anticipation. The front door opened, and the cold rushed in along with their voices. Mom's shrill tone cut through the air. Why is it so dark in here? Where's the heat? Dad followed behind, dragging suitcases. Probably forgot to pay the bill again. Typical. Emma, my sister, laughed the same annoying laugh that used to echo down the hall when she made fun of me. Grandma better not have left food out again. Ugh, it smells like potatoes. I stepped out of the shadows. Welcome home. I said. They froze. Mom blinked first. Oh, you're here. Her tone dropped, guilty for half a second, then turned dismissive. Well, at least you took care of Grandma like we asked. Behind her, Dad's face went pale. He must have noticed something was off, the expression in my eyes, maybe. Yeah. I said quietly, I took care of her. We've both been busy. Grandma walked in from the kitchen, her shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders, her smile calm but sharp. Good evening, travelers, she said sweetly. How was the cruise? Mom's mouth twitched. It was fine. You could have come, you know, if you didn't hold grudges. Grudges, I said softly. You mean like stealing my savings and abandoning me for Christmas? Emma rolled her eyes. Oh my God, it was just money. You're so dramatic. Something inside me snapped again, but this time I didn't yell. I smiled. Oh, I'm sure it feels like that. Now, Dad frowned. What's that supposed to mean? I took out my phone, unlocked it, and pressed play. The living room filled with sound, my mother's voice, recorded from her private message to my aunt. We'll just tell her we needed the money urgently. She's too soft to fight back, always is. Then came Dad's voice. By the time she finds out, we'll be sipping champagne. She can take care of the old lady. Silence. Their faces turned white. Where did you get that? Mom whispered. I looked at Grandma. She winked. Old ladies know things. I turned the phone toward them. That's not all. You might want to check your emails, Mom, or your social accounts. Emma grabbed her phone and gasped. What the hell? Everywhere she looked, her Instagram, her Facebook, her TikTok, there it was. Screenshots, receipts, copies of transactions showing how they drained my account. Used my name on fake credit cards. Lied about charity donations. The captions were brutal, but honest. This is what family betrayal looks like. Some people only call you daughter when they need your money. Tens of thousands of views already. The comments flooded in, calling them thieves, manipulators, frauds. Mom's knees gave out, and she slumped onto the couch. What have you done? What you made me do, I said coldly. Dad stepped forward, his voice trembling. You could have talked to us. We're family. Family. I snapped. Family doesn't leave you in the dark eating cold leftovers while they spend your savings on cocktails. He fell silent. Then Grandma spoke, her tone steady and sharp. You used her like an ATM. You lied to her, stole from her, and left her to rot with me like some burden. Well, congratulations, you got what you gave. Mom started crying loud, messy sobs that sounded more like fear than guilt. Please, take it all down. We can fix this, we can explain. I laughed. Explain what? That I worked myself sick while you pretended to be a loving mother online. Dad looked at me desperately. You've ruined us. No, I said. You ruined yourselves. I just turned the lights on. For a long time, no one spoke. The only sound was the hum of the old heater and the soft ticking of Grandma's knitting needles. Then Grandma said quietly, It's funny, isn't it? How fast the mighty fall when the truth comes out. I turned toward the window. Snow was starting again, slow, gentle flakes drifting down. It felt peaceful this time. They were whispering behind me, Mom begging, Emma crying, Dad trying to call someone. But their phones were useless now. Everything was gone. The agency reports had gone viral. Their names were flagged in every database, credit lines suspended, their accounts frozen. They had nothing left but shame. I picked up my coat and turned to Grandma. Let's go. Mom's voice cracked. Where are you going? Somewhere warm. I said simply, You wanted me to take care of Grandma. I'm just following your note. Dad stepped forward again. Please, we're sorry. Grandma's eyes hardened. You weren't sorry when you left her. You weren't sorry when you laughed over her money. Don't ask for forgiveness now that it's inconvenient. I walked to the door, the cold air biting my cheeks as I opened it. The snow swirled like a curtain between us. Mom tried one last time, You can't just leave us. I looked back just once, You left me first. And with that, I stepped outside. The door closed behind me with a soft click, the sound of something ending. We drove for hours that night, the old Buick rumbling through the silence. Grandma hummed a Christmas tune under her breath. After a while, she looked over at me and smiled. How do you feel? I stared out the window at the passing snow. Lighter, I said. For the first time, I feel. Free? She nodded. Good, because freedom is the best revenge. I smiled faintly. You know, Grandma, if this were a story, I'd call it her Retaliation. She laughed softly. Has a nice ring to it. The heater buzzed, the road stretched endlessly ahead, and the stars above shimmered like they'd finally noticed me. Somewhere far behind us, my family sat in darkness, their laughter gone, their comfort shattered, their masks stripped away. And I didn't feel sorry, not anymore, because this Christmas, I finally gave myself the only gift that mattered: closure.